But I do think in my lifetime, Kyle McCord may be the worst quarterback I've ever seen Ohio State have.
FanBuzz Weekly starts now.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to FanBuzz Weekly. I am your host, Patrick, with my co-hosts Will and Tyler. We're breaking down the biggest stories, the hottest takes in college football. Before we start, I do want to remind you guys to follow us on social media and make sure to sign up for that newsletter. The links are in the description. You don't want to miss everything that we've got cooking. Before we get into some topics today, guys, I need to bring up the Florida-Mizzou ending. First of all, I don't even know where to start, but I'm going to start where my blood is boiling, because Missouri Gator chomping all over the Gators. You know, the kicker hits their game-winning field goal, immediately Gator chomps. There's a picture of three of the Missouri receivers, literally making fun of a Gator as he has his head down, darn near crying. I think Missouri is not ready for the national spotlight. This is as Bush League as it gets. I know I'm biased, but learn how to win with some class. Act like you've won any important game, which I know Missouri hasn't, right? Last 10 years have been sort of brutal for them. But I just needed to get that out there. I need to get it off my chest. Hopefully you guys agree with me. If not, it's fine. We just got to put the boxing gloves on.
In the spirit of Thanksgiving, I am so thankful that I am not a Florida Gators fan. Go Dogs. I love Missouri, man. I don't know what you're talking about. I think it's incredible that they're a top 10 team this year. Is it Drinkwitz, the head coach? Just phenomenal job. I love their wide receivers. They have so many weapons. It's such a fun team. And I have no problem with it. I'll Gator chomp. Patrick, I'll Gator chomp you right now. I don't care.
Well, Florida-Georgia is different. That's an actual rivalry. As Patrick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Mizzou's not a specific rival of Florida's, is it? It's just making it weirdly personal out of nowhere.
There's no rivalry. There's never been a rivalry because Missouri hasn't done anything worth noting except 2013 and 14 when they went to the SEC championship game. I mean.
Yeah, I have it up right now. Those were their last double-digit win seasons. They're likely to get there with a win over Arkansas this week, but it's been quite some time. Although I love the thicker kicker. I thought the Gator chomping was hilarious. It's a little bit of a weirdly personal moment, but I mean, Patrick, you say you don't know where to start. I would start with the fact that it was considered too much of a burden to put a man on the best receiver in the country on 4th and 77 yards.
Burden. I like that.
I mean, what on the planet was that defensive call? I know Mizzou's I know Florida's an offense first team, but good Lord.
What was it? 4th and 17 or something?
It was 17. It was 4th and 17. Yeah.
It makes me mad because the old Gator defenses, even you go back to Will Muschamp, it would have never happened. It never happened. And this one is just Swiss cheese. I mean, we have that 30-year-old defensive coordinator who I'm not really sure I don't know if he lied on his resume. I don't know what he updated on his LinkedIn to get the job.
Hey, don't hate on 30-year-old coaches, man. There's nothing wrong with being 30-year-old coach.
But we're talking about a DC and the SEC. I don't know, and we're giving up. I don't know. It really just pissed me off. Obviously, our season has long been over, but we have a chance to spoil FSU season. We'll get to that eventually. I want to get to probably the biggest game of the weekend, I'd say. It's Michigan, Ohio State. The game, which is also a great rivalry nickname. It's just the game. Will's got his Michigan gear on already. Obviously, this could decide the number one team in the country. It's going to decide a lot of things in the CFP. Who do you guys think is going to come out on top? Which team has the bigger chance of missing the CFP with a loss?
I think we need to win. I think with everything that's going on, we have to be indisputable. We can't leave any room for doubt. They have Ohio State ranked higher, although I'm not sure why. We've played, I think, 7 common opponents, and we've beaten 5 of them by more than Ohio State did, with some of those coming on the road when Ohio played them at home. We've beaten them the last 2 seasons. We're the betting favorites. I don't understand why we're below them. It must be the off-the-field stuff that's going on. But I think we need to win, and I'm not a big fan of complaining that you should have been in if you didn't win your conference. I don't think we deserve to make it if we don't win. I think we will, though. I really think we will. I think Ohio State's the underdog here at the Big House, given we went to Ohio and beat them without our best player last season, Blake Corum. We returned everybody. They lost C.J. Stroud, who is an NFL star now. So I think that, frankly, they lost more. We were already better than them. Sharon Moore's a phenomenal coach. I'd love to have Coach Jim on the sideline, but Sharon's amazing. He's going to be a great head coach next year for someone, maybe us, depending on what happens with Jim. But Could not be more excited. This is the game of the year. I think, apologies to Tyler and the Bulldogs, winner deserves number one. No one else is going to have a better win than this one on the resume, especially if it's Ohio State pulling this one off at the Big House. That's an amazing win if they can do it.
So much we talking there, man. You are all in on this season, and
The
honestly,
team,
I respect
the team.
I don't know how Ohio State wins this one. I think maybe it's the emergence of Travion Henderson, who finally healthy has just looked absolutely phenomenal as running back for Ohio State. I mean, that guy is easily solidifying himself as the top running back in the upcoming draft class, which is saying a lot for how many talented running backs.
What a class! Yeah.
But I do think in my lifetime, Kyle McCord may be the worst quarterback I've ever seen Ohio State have. And it is just so jarring to see just such a stark difference going from Stroud to McCord. And he has plenty of help around him. And we just talked about Henderson. We've got Abuka and Marvin Harrison Jr. There's a ton of weapons. How is Michigan's defense going to handle that? I don't know. But I do think Ohio State's defense has been a little bit disappointing given the names that are on it. And I do think Michigan is in that mode where they can just take control of the game, especially on the ground. I mean, we saw what they did to Penn State in that second half, where they just decided, we don't really need to throw the ball at all, and we'll just pound it down your throat. I think they can control this game. I mean, I still keep thinking about that game last year. Who was it, Will, on the sideline that had that speech just saying that, they were soft and that, they had no business? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't remember this, but it was crazy. That was just getting punched in the mouth. We didn't have Blake Corum. Donovan Edwards ran for 1,000,000 yards. I've got a stat for you, though, Tyler, about those. Your gut's telling you this is the worst Ohio State QB you've seen in recent memory, and the paper agrees with you. The Big Ten Greasy Breeze Quarterback of the Year award was established in 2011. Russell Wilson won the inaugural one for Wisco. Since then, with the exception of Connor Cook in that weird 2015 year, every single winner has been the Buckeyes starting quarterback. That is not going to be the case this year. This is the first time Michigan's ever had an advantage at the quarterback position. We have the defense to slow down the run game, and I think Will Johnson versus Marvin Harrison Jr. is an amazing individual matchup that I could not be more excited to see. I think they're each the best player at their position in the country if it's not Luther Burden.
And I still really like McCarthy. I know he doesn't throw the ball a whole lot anymore, but I think his comfortability with throwing in the middle of the field, especially, it's something that can be really hard for certain types of quarterbacks. I mean, I'm a Packers fan. I watched Aaron Rodgers refuse to throw in the middle of the field for most of my life. So I like his athleticism. I like how he can rifle it in there, even if he doesn't have to. I just think there's a lot of talent on the Michigan team. And I do think we could argue all day about whether or not they are vindicated in how they feel right now. But we cannot deny that that is a motivated squad that is probably going to try and just absolutely destroy Ohio State.
Motivation's great no matter how you come by it. Tyler, you should know this more than anyone. Last year, you have Georgia Bulldogs on the field coming off a national champion saying, everyone thought we were going 8-5 this year. I'm like, who on earth with a job said that?
Nobody thought that. I have a question for you guys. Do you guys think, well, first of all, Michigan is the favorite here, but Ohio State is ranked ahead of them according to the committee. Do you think the committee is almost trying to set itself up to sneak Ohio State in if enough happens at the bottom of that, 4 or 5 ranking? If there is a one-loss team, it's going to be Ohio State.
I hate that.
Yes, or Georgia. But we've seen Ohio State go in without winning the conference. I think more than any team. I think they've done it at least twice. They once went in when they didn't win the conference, and they lost head-to-head to the Penn State team that did. They love getting Ohio State in. Granted, it is probably one of the 4 best teams in the country, but yes, when Ohio State was put at number 1 in the initial rankings, my first thought was, great, they can lose in Ann Arbor and still be the 4th seed.
Exactly. That's the first, and that's what I was thinking too. I was like, why are they ranked ahead of Michigan? I don't know. Was it after Michigan had that close game against Maryland? What is?
No, well, this was the first week that they jumped Michigan in the AP poll after that close game against Maryland. But the playoff rankings, they've actually moved down recently. Georgia got back to number 1 by showing that they are still Georgia, and now they're the team that can maybe lose to Alabama and make it in on 12-1.
I hate this, man. I get that there could be a one-loss Ohio State team that doesn't go to the conference championship, sneaks in, but there are just too many deserving teams this year.
Florida State, not like last year.
Yeah. Florida State, Washington, Oregon, Alabama. We have so many teams right now that I just think if you put them head-to-head in a neutral site would win in this matchup. And it would just really upset me to see Ohio State in as a non-Big Ten champion.
It is truly unfortunate that the expanded playoff isn't this year. There are just so many good teams, so many good quarterbacks that would be so fun to watch, but we have to narrow it down again.
It's brutal. Under the 12 team, I mean, that Mizzou team would be in. Oregon State would have a shot. Louisville would be winning in because I think there'd be auto bids. And Tyler, you forgot in the teams that could realistically make this playoff under the current format, we've got two guys in Texas in the podcast, I guess, AJ, behind the scenes. But Longhorns, they could be 12-1 with a conference crown, a win over Alabama, and they would have avenged their only loss. That team has a case if Florida State goes down to Louisville, which I think they're going to.
All right, let's move on to the SEC. We're going to talk about the Iron Bowl, a game that anything can happen. We've seen it in history. Auburn is coming off, I mean, it's got to be one of the worst losses in program history to New Mexico State. They paid nearly $2 million for, the Aggies to come in and basically beat them up. Meanwhile, Alabama just destroyed Chattanooga 66-10, and Jalen Milroe is on an absolute tear right now. Looks far from the quarterback we saw at the beginning of the season. Does Auburn stand a chance, or will this be another beatdown from Alabama?
Nope. Next question. No, I'm kidding.
All right, moving on.
It is rivalry, and I think it's one of my favorite parts about college football is obviously the crazy upsets can happen anywhere. But I think we talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago. Just Jalen Milroe has become a totally different player than what he was at the start of the season. His development over the course of the year has just been phenomenal. What I appreciate is that while he's developed, he has not abandoned the run game. Like, he is such a valuable scrambler, and we can still see that he makes plays with his legs. He's not going to be a polished product as a passer. It's just not going to happen anytime soon. But you have to at least appreciate, how far he's come. And then on that defensive front, I mean, weapons like Dallas Turner and Kool-Aid McKinstry, just like future first-round picks. And Auburn, man, after all that coaching craziness last offseason to go 6-5 heading into this game, just a disappointing year. And I think this could get ugly fast.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Auburn has a chance just because it's at Auburn. It's the Iron Bowl. If anything, I think Auburn is gonna come out trying to ruin Alabama's season. Like, they have a lot to play for here, and they're coming off that loss that I just like. You need to play. You need to play hard the next game. I know that feels like some weird coach speak sometimes. Oh, they're coming off a loss. They need to play hard. But like, we've seen it before. But also shout out to New Mexico State, man. Their first win over an SEC team. They were, I think, 1-24 all time, and now Auburn gets that beautiful distinction.
Yeah, I mean, New Mexico State's honestly having a great year. I think they're 9-3 now, and they're going to their conference championship, so good for them. Still not a 21-point loss that Auburn should be taking at home. About this game, though, I think on paper, it's a ball game. Alabama's defense, it's good. It is not performing the way that it should be on paper. 21st in the country in EPA per play. That's good. That is not Alabama good. Auburn's 43rd, pretty solid unit. Could give Milroe some fits. Like Tyler said, he's not a polished passer. And if they're able to contain him a little bit, maybe talented front seven could kind of happen. And like Patrick said, it's at Jordan Hare. They always have a chance at Jordan Hare in this football game. And Alabama could have an eye on Georgia. Best team in the country last 2 years. I think this is a win in game for Alabama. Not this one, the one against Georgia, if they're able to get through this one. So they could have an eye on the future. I think this would be a perfect upset piece for Auburn if Peyton Thorne wasn't a total potato. I mean, the guy is, I think he's worse than he was at Michigan State. He was like quietly efficient at State, and the wheels have come off. The floor has fallen out. I think he's useless, and Alabama's going to swallow him. So if it were anyone else, like if it was even Auburn Bo Nix, which was not this current version of Bo Nix, we'd be talking about an upset. But I don't know. I think it's a cover, but not an upset.
Roast him. Roast that potato. Hashtag potato thorn. Oh my God, get him. I think what you're saying too, it reminds me of, I don't know if you guys saw Nick Saban's wife, Terry Saban, before the Kentucky game, which was 2 games ago. She said that it was going to be hard playing at Auburn. Like, she was even looking ahead in their season. And Nick Saban had to say, like, no, we still got Kentucky right in front of us. And I think there's a chance that some of these Alabama players are already looking toward Georgia, like, especially because Auburn just had this terrible loss. Maybe they think they're going to roll right over them. I just wouldn't jump ahead. Let's move on to an undefeated team, Florida State, who is now without their Heisman candidate quarterback. Jordan Travis suffered an ugly leg injury, went on social media and basically announced that his college career is over. Now, what does FSU have to do to make the college football playoff? And do you think the committee, because I think there's a real chance here, do you think the committee takes this into consideration if it's between them and, let's say, an Ohio State or someone else, the fact that they're going to have a backup playing.
I think the only scenario where that comes into play is if your Gators knock them off and then they go ahead and beat Louisville. If they go 13, I mean, obviously, if they don't win the conference and they have a backup, it's just like not worth a discussion. If they go 13-0, you can't make assumptions about how good they'll be going forward. If they go 13-0, they win a Power 5 conference, they have earned it. And I think we've seen with the iconic UCF over, I believe it was Auburn in the Sugar Bowl or something, we've seen what happens when you assume whether or not a team can compete at a playoff level when they've earned it. I don't think there should be any assumptions made. That being said, I don't think they win out. I think they lose to Louisville. I think they maybe lose to the Gators. And I think it's really sad. Honestly, I personally hate Florida State. Patrick, I'm sure you do too. And I hate to see this, because when I hate players and teams, I really like to see their downfall be by being terrible, not by getting hurt. It's just never the way you want to see things play out. And I hope Jordan Travis has a full recovery and, I don't know, makes a cool NFL comeback or something, because like you said, his college career is done.
Yeah, it's sad because the first thought I had when I watched his injury is, oh my God, Florida has a chance. And then as if karma struck, then Graham Mertz, our quarterback got hurt. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be a battle of the backups to determine Florida State's season. And I don't know if you guys watched Max Brown, Florida's backup. He looked like Tim Tebow, dude. He was running the ball. He's a big dude.
Let's settle down, man.
I'm just saying, Max Brown for Heisman. I'm just putting it out there.
That's it. That's all you. That's
next year. Watch.
Wow.
I just had to do a triple take and make sure that wasn't USC Max Brown. Oh my God, he's way too old.
I do think Florida State still has a chance in both of these games. I know nothing about Tate Rodemaker. I saw he's a 3-star recruit. I'm very curious to see how he plays. But let's be clear, he has the weapons around him. Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, Jaheim Bell, Trey Benson. My brain wanted to say Cedric Benson. That's just where we're at right now. But just so much talent on that offense. I'm very curious to see how he plays. I think it is a winnable path. I have heard that theoretically the College Football Playoff Committee can factor in the lack of a starting quarterback. I think that's dumb. If this team wins out, you can't not put them in. There's just too much talent. Go ahead.
Ohio State in 2014, the inaugural playoff, they went in on 12-1 with a third stringer. And they won because they deserved to be there, and they were easily the best team. That you can't, and we're talking about an undefeated here, not a 12-1. I think if they're 12-1, there's no chance. And frankly, I think with Jordan Travis, they would have needed chaos to make it in on 12-1 because their resume is terrible. Yeah. But if they're 13-0, win the ACC, I mean, obviously there's not much precedent setting because this is the last year where these decisions are even going to get to be made. But what is the committee saying if they don't put in a 13-0 Power 5 champ? It's like, why even have the conference title games, which they really forced the Big 12 into having? So,
yeah,
I think they're in at 13-0.
I think there's no discussion there. But if they lose to Florida and win the ACC, I think the committee should look at their situation and say they have a backup. They don't have, their Jordan Travis. If it comes down to them or another one-loss, championship, I don't know. I wouldn't put them in, but obviously I'm biased.
Well, let's see, too, if that scenario plays out and Rodemaker plays extremely well, maybe that also plays a factor into hey, maybe he has done enough to salvage this. I hate that it's probably going to come down to ratings. It really might on some of these resumes. They can try and talk the public into a certain thing, but it could be listen, we would really like that Ohio State market to be watching the college football playoff games if they, theoretically lose to Michigan and still somehow get in. It's just why I want the 12-team playoff. I know we're talking about the commercialization of college football, but I do think there's still some value in having a 12-team, and I want to see some crazy upsets next year. I want to see that super low seed make a run. I think it'll be very interesting for the sport. So I'm just glad that we only have to have this debate for one more year because it can be really exhausting.
My biggest problem with college football, pretty much forever, but especially since they expanded it and the door was kind of open for this, is that there's no definitive path. In college basketball, every single team can go out and win the games that are in front of them, and it might be very unlikely, but they will win a national championship if they keep winning. Football, there's no indisputables. Oregon could go 12-1 and get left out for a 12-1 Georgia, who doesn't win the SEC, and that would be Tyler. I know you wouldn't complain, but that would be an absolute travesty.
I love this Oregon team too.
They're sweet.
I love Washington more just because of Michael Penix, but I would
Yeah.
somehow love to see both, and I know it's not going to happen.
I'm excited for. I want an 8. I think Buys is a little goofy, and I don't know. It's not often that the
like the
12th
Buys.
best team in the country deserves a playoff spot, but I'm excited for automatic qualifiers. I guess the group of 5 has a long way to go still, but we're not. There were 3 years in a row in the playoff where the Big Ten champion missed the playoff. Never again.
Yeah.
The reason I like the 12 team, I really like the incentive of being a top 4 and getting that bye. I
also like the
there's some
on-campus
value
games.
Yes, it's going to be awesome. I can't imagine. We love college football atmosphere here on the show. The playoff home games are going to be unbelievable.
We need to go to them. That's what we need to do.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Let's move on to the college football hot seats. Obviously, a lot of coaches. There's been coaches who've already been fired. We've seen Jimbo, that domino fell. That was the biggest one. And it's time to start to think about what other dominoes are going to fall. So I want to ask you guys, which coaches do you think do you think will actually get fired after this season? And who is maybe on the precipice of that?
I'm going to talk about mine real quick. I know it's not a major market. Tom Allen, I love you, man. I love the COVID year. It's over. It's never been more over than it is now. After that COVID year for IU and Indiana, you got some big recruits. As soon as things started falling apart, everyone decommitted. You've now got a game against Michigan State where, you've got some bowl game hopes on the line past couple of weeks. No one's showing up to your games. You fire the offensive coordinator. You made so many changes at quarterback. Everything's a mess. I think it's time to move on. I don't know what the future of Indiana football holds because it's never been awesome. But I unfortunately think the time for Tom Allen is past.
Yeah, I can tell you with some confidence that the trustees and the boosters are putting together the money to buy Tom Allen out right now.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not pretty, but I don't think that's where it ends in the Big Ten. I think the NCAA investigation around Michigan is going to drag out long enough that Coach Jim's going to leave. I mean, this isn't someone with no options. It won't be a true firing, especially if we win the Natty. But I think he's gone. He has no reason to sit there and wait for his fate when the team that drafted him, the Bears, is going to have a job open. Vegas, owned by Tom Brady in small part, and the Patriots. He's going to have a chance to be Bill Belichick's successor. If he so chooses. There's no reason to stay, and I won't hold it against him. That being said, James Franklin, Ryan Day, Luke Fickell, I think all gone next season. If Day loses to Michigan again, done. James Franklin falls to 4-18 against Michigan and OSU, done. Luke Fickell's offense takes another year to be halfway decent, done. And Sean Lewis will move over there. But for ones that I think could happen this year, Mario Cristobal's done. If Miami loses another game, if they lose to BC this week, which I think could happen, but I'm biased. But even if he doesn't, he should be out. His game management's a joke. And this is a firing that'll never, ever happen. But Dabo Swinney has lost the plot in South Carolina. He is he's an amazing football coach in a lot of ways, but he is not cut out for this current era. He won't get fired ever because of his natties, but his time should be coming to a close if I were the one making the call.
Do you think that he's probably saved his job with how much they've turned it around the last few weeks, though? Because, I mean, they've had some quality wins. I think they're starting to turn things around.
I don't think his job was ever actually in danger. He's built up so much. I mean, I don't want to take away from what he's done. The way he's built that program up, you would never have imagined 15 years ago or even less with the Taj Boyd teams that we'd be talking about them in the same breath as Alabama every single season for a while. So great for him in getting those 2 rings, but he was never going to get fired because of that. But it's not even that he deserves to be fired. I just don't think that he and his unwillingness to use the transfer portal, I don't think it sets them up well for this future era of college football.
Yeah, I have another name to throw in there. I know it's a popular name, Lincoln Riley. I don't think he's going to get fired necessarily, but I saw this on Twitter. Jimbo Fisher had a better record in his final 14 games at A&M. He was 8-6 than Lincoln Riley does in his last 14 games. He's 7-7. I mean, that just goes to show you how bad Lincoln Riley has been, and he has a Heisman quarterback. Like figure out the defense. Like, I don't even know what else to say. And then another name that I think should be fired is Sam Pittman at Arkansas. The only SEC team that's worse than them is Vanderbilt. They have the win over Florida, which I don't know that even looks that great right now. But his time feels like it's coming to an end. I think I just saw though that their athletic director said we're keeping him. I still okay, great. Like until another coach becomes available. His life cycle feels like it's over at Arkansas. He's in his 4th season, sub 500, like time to move on.
I was waiting, Patrick. I kept a name off my list because I was going to let you have the floor. I was waiting to hear Billy Napier, but maybe
Listen,
Florida gives him more than 2 seasons.
I go back and forth with my Florida buddies so much about this, and
Yeah.
it always ends with, well, one, our recruiting. I think we still have a top 5 class coming in next year. Of course, if that falls
I don't know
apart,
how.
I'm like, is something going on in the back end there? I don't know. But if it falls apart, if we lose DJ Lagway, who's their top quarterback coming in, then I think you start looking at it. But I think it's too early. Like, people love to pull the trigger and like fire these dudes, and it's like, great, now we start over. What is the point of that? Okay, let's move on. Sorry, every time we get talking about Florida, I'm like, I really get going. I just need to slow down.
Is it hot in here? Am I sweating?
Yeah, I'm like, ooh, my pits are sweating. Let's go to take the over. This is rivalry week edition, so I'm sure we have some good choices. I'm going to bring a couple here. I'll start out. I have Utah, Colorado, because I really want to see Dion and Colorado end on a high note. I think that line's at 52.5. I know Colorado's been playing terribly, and I'm known for picking great here in these sections. I'm not
You've
picking
been on
Iowa.
fire, man.
Not picking Iowa. I think
Come
that one was
on.
at 26.5. I mean,
I was so close to doing that one.
were you real? I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring
Yeah.
myself to it, and just embarrass myself more. And then another one that I actually have confidence is Clemson, South Carolina. Both offenses have been rolling. I think it was at 51.5. And South Carolina just put up 47 recently against Vanderbilt. Like, that feels easy. Who do you guys have?
Will, please go first.
Well, I was going to let you go first because I'm going to snipe one that I'm imagining is on your sheet. IU Purdue is free money at 50.5. I mean, this one's going over. IU just somehow had a mega shootout against Illinois of all teams. Indiana and Michigan State even almost hit this number. Meanwhile, Purdue moved it against Michigan more than almost any team has. And this is the shocker, not result, but just game script of the whole year for me in the Big Ten. Purdue and Minnesota chipping in for 79 points. Where on earth did that come from? So I think that one's free. These defenses are not amazing. The offenses are showing some life. You could almost argue that Indiana's better off for having lost the Drew Aller commit based on the way he's been playing. I kid a little bit, but offense has been looking a little better for the Hoosiers. My other one that I'm looking at is Houston and UCF. These defenses are absolutely terrible by EPA, points allowed, every metric. UCF offense has been really solid. Houston offense, a little bit bad, but they're showing some life. They hung 30 points on Oklahoma State while allowing 43. That number, I didn't write that number down, but I think it's somewhere in the 60s. It's a little bit higher than the Indiana one, but Big 12 is like the new Pac-12. It's just shootout central.
I'm going to go in the MAC. I want a little MACtion right now. Miami of Ohio, Ball State, over 35.5. By the way, I told you guys at the beginning of this show, at the beginning of the season, keep an eye out for Ty Wise. Over 80 tackles, 7 sacks, and an interception this year. Kid is just absolutely crushing it. Proud alum of Carmel. So we're proud of the kid. He's doing
That's
phenomenal.
awesome.
Yeah, I really can't wait to see where his career goes from here. But I just think there's some points to be had in that game. 36.5 is a pretty awfully low number. It's not Iowa levels of low, but we're going to ride with it. And then screw it. I'm just going to go with the game over 46 in that. I know time of possession is going to be rough. There's going to be some very long possessions. But I just think there's enough offensive talent and weapons that we're going to see some touchdowns and some field goals in there. So, 46, I don't think it's the highest number. I'm just going to take it because I'm going to be watching it anyway, and I want to root for something.
I'm a little scared for Michigan's offensive line. This is a crazy stat. I know we only threw 11 times, so it's a small sample size. Carson Barnhart's PFF pass blocking grade for that game was a 0. He contributed nothing. He got mauled by Chop Robinson off the snap every single play. I'm terrified for JT. I think, and Tyler, you mentioned pace. Michigan's like the 4th slowest offense in the country, and Ohio State's not, but they're not. Well, they're not Colorado. So I don't know. I think you could be right. There's a lot of talent, but I think these defenses are sweet. Maybe the best 2 in the country.
Hang on, is 0 the worst grade you can get? Like, are you just letting the guy go right by you, or is there something?
Yes, Patrick, go back and watch the tape. There's only 11 snaps. Chop Robinson was on J.J. McCarthy in under 2 seconds every time that he rolled out to Barnhart's side or dropped straight back. It was ridiculous. That's why we stopped throwing.
If we got out there, we would put up the same the same number. Like, that's insane. Like, what?
That's kind of the assumption. Michigan schemed around it, brought 7 linemen on the field, started pulling tackles. It was, I mean, honestly, a great game from an you don't see a lot of coaches make in-game adjustments before the half as good as Sharon Moore did, and he's an assistant. So proud of him in that spot, but terrifying for our tackles going up against Ohio State's edge rushers, both of whom were the NFL players.
Jeez. Okay, well, let's move on to Did You See This, where we're going to bring something that we saw in college football. Maybe you guys didn't see it. We haven't talked about Caleb Williams, so I'm going to bring up Caleb Williams. Electing not to speak to the media after that bad UCLA loss. I'm not going to lie. I think this is a terrible look. I think when you are the face of college football, you are a Heisman winner, you're going to be the number 1 pick in the NFL. You got to speak to the media. It doesn't matter if you lose 100-0. It looks really, really immature, in my opinion. And I know we can say this as people sort of in sports media, like, you know, maybe people feel like we're entitled to that, but it's part of the job. It's part of the job as being the face of college football. Is all these things you got to answer to the tough questions, and I think it just looks terrible. I think whoever's going to draft him has to really consider this sort of thing. I think he's already had some instances like this. I know he had that other press conference after where, you know, he said he just wanted to go home and watch TV, which is relatable, but like you gotta do the tough parts too, right? Like losing comes with it. I don't know. What do you guys feel about that?
I think he's going to start slipping in the NFL for all the wrong reasons, at least in the draft. I think he's a phenomenal talent. I actually don't know how good that offense truly is talent-wise. I think Lincoln Riley can really draw up some fun gadget plays, but at the end of the day, I just don't know if they have the talent around him that really like emphasizes what he's good at. And I said this on a podcast last night. I think we've gotten the pro comp for Caleb Williams all wrong. I think people keep calling him Patrick Mahomes, where I just think he's a bigger Kyler Murray. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think, in fact, that's a very, very good NFL quarterback. But I just think all these expectations, happiness is just, what is it? Reality minus expectations. And the expectations for this kid are just so dang high that people are just trying to nitpick anything and everything. I said at the beginning of the year, I thought Drake May was the better quarterback. I'm feeling pretty good about that. That being said, anyone that takes a different quarterback outside of May above Caleb Williams should be fired immediately. So I think maybe this is getting a little too ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting comp on the bigger Kyler, because I've always said that if Kyler was 6'2", he would have been like the tank 4 guy. I think he would be I think Kyler's maybe the greatest pound for pound pro athlete I've ever seen. I mean, in talent wise,
he's still so good. He's
amazing at football. I mean, he was a top 10 pick in the MLB. He was the first overall pick in the NFL. He's a very deserving Heisman. Just a super talent. And if he was 6'2", he'd be Bo Jackson as a quarterback. But yeah, I mean, the Caleb stuff, I think it's been a really tough year for him. Tyler's right. There were a lot of expectations settled on that USC team, and he'll have expectations in the NFL, but it'll do well for him to, I mean, obviously he's going to be going to a terrible team, whether it's the Bears or the Cardinals or whoever it may be, not going to be a team that's expected to go ahead and make the playoffs right away. I don't think he should be falling down draft boards. I think maybe people coming back to earth on him a little bit is a good thing. He's not some kind of like silver bullet that's going to make your terrible NFL team good in year one, because no one is. I am a
Bears. Cough.
I was going to say, every Bears fan who says, "Oh, we picked Mitch Trubisky when Pat Mahomes was sitting there," dude, you would have ruined Pat Mahomes with the infrastructure you had in place at that time. And Mitch Trubisky, well, he wouldn't have done this, but he would have made the playoffs in Kansas City. So I think that it might be a good thing that Caleb's expectations are getting tempered now rather than when he has a whole NFL franchise on his shoulders. But maybe he should back off asking for that ownership stake.
My have you seen this is a little more fun than this topic. It took me until this week to realize that Tennessee's punter is ambidextrous and kicks with both feet in rugby style. So he will roll out to the right or left. And I know this may not excite a lot of people listening. To me, as someone that's had to draw up and scheme punt, this is the most fascinating thing I've ever seen. The fact that you can design punt left and punt right with different protections and have your punter roll out different ways and kick it with a different foot to place it in a specific spot is a game changer for a special teams unit. I would like to see if more punters are capable of doing this, but my jaw dropped when I found this out. And I don't know how you defend against it, honestly.
Do we know his background?
Yeah.
Like, how does he?
Australian punter.
Is he really? Like, I mean, like, I feel like every punter, every kicker, everything is from Australia.
Yep.
I mean, it should be relatively doable. We see, I mean, obviously a lot of soccer's greatest stars, Messi, Mo Salah, are very heavily one-footed, but you do get ambidextrous guys who can really rip from anywhere on the pitch with either foot. So you'd have to imagine that there's at least the ability for a really great punter with this, the same kind of predilections to be able to do that. It's super interesting, and it really opens up the field for fake punts. If you have to spread your coverage unit out a little bit more, if you have to be ready for him to roll out either way as a punter, then you have to start thinking about maybe we can teach this guy to throw the football.
Tennessee has claimed that they think he could play wide receiver. He's that athletic. So
Tennessee's going to Australia for their wide receiver commits. Who would have thought?
Pretty sweet. I'm going to go to special teams as well for my did you see this? Well, special teams in part. And we're going back to the Michigan game against Maryland. Easily the weirdest game our team has played this year, which is crazy coming after a week in which we ended the game not throwing for over 2 quarters. But this is still a weirder one. We scored in all 3 phases in the first quarter: offense, defense, special teams. The special teams one was a safety, a punt that got blocked through the end zone. And the crazier wrinkle is that it ended up being a 2-safety game for the Michigan defense. At the time, it looked like it was just going to be a fun little wrinkle and a blowout win, but all of those scores actually ended up being super important. So one of the weirder ways I've seen Michigan win a game, better than all the weird ways I've seen Michigan lose a game, I'll take it.
Do we know when the last time someone had 2 safeties, a team had 2 safeties in a game?
It's not as rare as you think. Michigan
Really?
had done
Okay.
it Michigan had done it in the past decade or something like that, but it's not an every week thing at all.
Okay. I was kind of hoping you'd have the number since 1951 or whatever,
No,
something
and
crazy.
I don't remember the number because it wasn't jarring. They put it on the screen. It wasn't even a national thing. It was Michigan hasn't had 2 safeties in a game since, I don't know, maybe it was Denard's era or something like that. It wasn't crazy long ago, though. This wasn't a leather helmet stat.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to be it for today's episode. If you like the show, please like and subscribe. You can listen to us. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, wherever that may be. I don't even know all the places you get podcasts these days. But don't forget to check our newsletter. The link is in the description. We are FanBuzz on TikTok, Instagram, all over social media. And we will see you guys next week. We'll have plenty to talk about, I'm sure, after all these games. So yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you, guys.
First off, Michigan is a cult. With Jim Harbaugh, it has become a cult-like program. But I think it's working. The players are all bought in.